Hey guys, how you doing today? Oh, another bitter cold one, man. It's starting to ease up a little bit, but apparently next week is going to be the big one where it just dips right down to the cold. So thankful I've got my heat. Thankful I'm indoors most of the time. But boy, am I looking forward to the nicer weather. Oh well, the traffic's quite a thing right now. Okay. So the big piece of news that I think is going to get buried by the media, and I don't think anybody's actually going to talk about, is Doug Ford announcing, not really announcing, but just like quietly making it clear that come February 22nd, they're going to do what they're calling eviction enforcement, right? Isn't that a harrowing sounding name? Eviction enforcement, right? Through this period of time, during the pandemic, the Ford administration wisely put forward a policy that they weren't going to evict anybody, or they weren't going to allow anybody to get evicted during a pandemic. But now the numbers are starting to dip, right? And when I say dip, I mean we're no longer at 4,000. Instead, we're at like 15 to 1,000. And so the Ford administration is rushing as fast as it possibly can to reopen things, right? Like, without setting off a whole bunch of alarm bells. But the reality is they want the place to be opened up. And that's going to be the story moving forward, is moving up the economy, and while telling everybody like, oh yeah, we'll snap right back down. Yeah, okay. And that's what's going to happen, is they're just going to perpetually put us in a position where we're constantly reopening and closing and reopening and closing and reopening and closing, because they refuse to do this properly. They refuse to do an actual lockdown. Like, even a 2-week lockdown at this point, I think, would be better. Anyway, but what they're doing now, February 22nd, is they're lifting the eviction restrictions, right? They're going to do eviction enforcement, which essentially is going to allow landlords to, in the midst of this pandemic, because the pandemic isn't going to end just because Doug Ford is loosening restrictions. In the midst of this pandemic, people are going to be evicted, right? And what's terrifying, like I did some research on this and I took a look around, and nobody knows how many people get evicted annually, right? Nobody keeps track of that data. There's nobody actually doing it. And if you can find it, please share. Please share. I would love to see that data. And it's scary. It's scary to think that there's going to be people in this period of time during this pandemic who are going to slip through the cracks, because the system has been designed to allow people to slip through the cracks. The system is created in such a way so that people have to slip through the cracks, or will slip through the cracks, right? There's always going to be that person who doesn't quite apply for the CSB. They don't quite apply for the CRB. They maybe they have employment insurance, but it runs out, right? EI runs out, you know? And I fear that there's going to be, like, Doug Ford's not going to do mass evictions. It's not going to be 1 month, suddenly thousands and thousands of people are going to be all at once evicted, right? But it's going to be a trickle. There's going to be this trickle effect, just how it is with the basic income, just how it is with, the CERB, is that you don't want to snap off the valve and have everybody get off of it all at once. You want people to trickle off of it, so that they get abandoned in a slow trickle, right? So that there isn't like a news report that can come out and be like 10,000 people all at once, right? It's just that at the end you'll have 10,000 people who get abandoned, right? Instead of it happening in one big snap, to make it obvious that these people don't care about you and that they're seeking to abandon you, they'll do it in a slow, steady trickle. We're reaching that 5-minute mark where a lot of people dip out of these videos. So if you're here, just hit a like. Just hit the like on your way out. You know, I'd appreciate it. And hey, maybe subscribe. You don't have a communist in your feed, right? I'd love it. Anyway, and this sense of paranoia and fear that I got to address it, man. I got to address it straight up, because it's affecting me, and it's affecting my channel, and it's affecting how I do things. And it's affecting what I do in my decision making, and I don't like it, right? Because capitalism has put us in this place where we're all scared, right? We're all scared all the time. We're all making decisions based out of this place of just brutal fear. And the fact that Ford is going to put evictions on the table now for us, and the fact that Ford is going to say to us like, oh yeah, hey, we can just kick you out at any time, right? Oh, you couldn't pay your bills because the CRB and the EI and all that kind of stuff ran out as it's designed to run out. Oh, hey, and you couldn't get a job in the worst recession that we've had in living memory. Big shocker. The idea that we're tying everything back to these capitalists, right? We lived through this pandemic moment where it couldn't be more naked and it couldn't be more obvious what the capitalists are going to do or what they do in the midst of these kinds of situations, right? They just put us to work and they abandon us. And the only thing that prevents them from doing that is our revolt. And it seems like the populace was willing to be compliant in this particular situation because honestly, COVID wasn't as bad as it could have been. It wasn't the worst case scenario. It wasn't like a literal plague, you know? It's bad, certainly, and it's dangerous, certainly, but it's not like the bubonic plague, right? It's not like Ebola, right? And so I feel like people concede a lot of their power and their own personal authority to capitalists because people still believe that capitalists have authority and they still believe that capitalists have some kind of justification, right? Well, they must have some kind of justification, right? How else could they possibly make all that wealth, right? If it wasn't somehow just. Meanwhile, I'm like, I read an article recently come out of the Narwhal, which is a wonderful article, and I suggest people seek it out, that really breaks down the fracking industry in British Columbia and points out that if it wasn't for the government subsidies that were going into these industries to frack British Columbia, these companies wouldn't be affordable. They wouldn't be able to actually afford their existence. And so literally what you have is a situation, like, and I'm against fracking 100%. Like I think that we need to be cutting emissions back hugely. And fracking is just like the absolute, it's what a junkie does, right? It's just the absolute scraping of the bottom of the barrel in order to find, the drug that you need in order to get like a fleeting high for just a fractional second. But the idea that private owners are benefiting from that industry that couldn't survive without the taxpayers subsidizing them is asinine, right? The British Columbia should own those companies. Those companies should be nationalized, right? And it's terrifying to me, and it's becoming more and more terrifying, and it's becoming more difficult for me to handle on the day-to-day, that there's this looming battle axe that can come down at any moment, right? That there's this looming kind of threat. How you doing? Just got one of my neighbors walking by. Oh, hey, Owen, how you doing, buddy? How you doing? He's a golden retriever. I promise I won't show him, but you're a good boy, Owen. You're a good boy. Little dog break. Little dog break. Have a good one, bud. And it's good to know your neighbors. It's good to know your neighbors. Oh, it's good to know your neighbors. It's good to know your neighbors. It is. It is grounding. And everything, I feel so isolated, and it's so difficult to calm down. Don't you find it's so difficult to like just calm down and like chill out? And just everything that I do in my spare time seems fraught with anxiety and fear and uncertainty, and then guilt, right? Like all of these emotions swirl around just like the simple act of trying to like just come home from work and decompress from work and just relax and enjoy myself for a moment. But even that activity is starting to lack. It's starting to just lack. It doesn't satisfy. It doesn't satisfy because the whole structure is designed so that I only get these fractional, like these little tiny, like I get an hour or two in the evening where I actually get to sit down and do something. And so I can't commit any amount of time to an actual project or to an actual thing, right? Like I get to sit down and do a video like this, and even this is it feels like it's kind of talking into a vacuum. It feels closer to therapy than organization. And there's a part of me, like, I am trying to organize. I'm trying to organize with a group called Socialist Action, whose website I put in the description below, and I highly advise people go pay attention and join that organization, right? If you're here in Canada and in the United States, I think that Socialist Action, they got their heads on right, and they're doing the right stuff, and they're talking a good game, and they're well positioned and well researched. And so I hope that that goes somewhere. But to have this looming threat of eviction, of homelessness, right? Like there's this looming constant threat. Like what if my business just decides to downsize my position, right? I'm an assistant manager. Let's say that my business just decides, okay, we no longer need these assistant managers. Like assistant managers across the board, we'll just cut them out, right? Well, if I take if I get reduced hours, right? And reduced pay, right? If my position suddenly no longer exists, that could render me completely destitute. It could happen very quickly to me, right? And it could happen very quickly to lots of people I know. And that's just like a simple business decision that gets made in some room by people I've never met and I never will meet. And they're just looking at a spreadsheet and just saying like, oh, we could save, like 1.3% if we did this, right? And that 1.3% is my entire livelihood. Like it would be the end of me. And this isn't hyperbolic, right? I've watched this happen in my own industry, in retail. I've watched this happen to people who have and they've been with the company for 10, 15 years, and then suddenly they're just out. And they're just told, oh, don't worry, you'll get another job. Meanwhile, like the jobs reports are like, we're in like the worst recession in living memory. And it doesn't seem like anybody seems to actually give a crap about that in any serious kind of way. I keep getting told that we have to care about this deficit thing. And I keep getting told that, oh, well, like, we just have to tighten our belts. And in the meantime, like, the wealthiest people in our country are getting wealthier. And it's because they actually have hard assets. It's because land is worth something. And so I just am in this, like, real scared place and isolated and scared and terrified. And it absolutely sucks. It absolutely sucks. Oh, it sucks so bad that our current leadership obviously does not care about the workers. Like, obviously does not give a crap. Like, when Doug Ford came into office, he lied his face off about getting rid of the basic income program. He said he wasn't going to do it, and he lied his face off about it. And the very first thing he did was eliminate the basic income program. It's the first thing he did. So he lied his way into office, and then immediately started a class war. He immediately assaulted the working class. He cut every service that we use. He eliminated the minimum wage increase. The minimum wage was supposed to increase to $15. He cut that, right? It was an assault against the working class. And he would have just continued doing that if it hadn't been for this pandemic, which everybody lauds him and says, oh goodness, Doug Ford, he's doing such a great job. What an idiot. Like, this guy literally just reads cue cards. Like, he's the same as Justin Trudeau. He doesn't have any ideas. He's in way over his head. He doesn't know what's going on, right? And he takes his cues from the business community. That's who he's listening to, right? Sure, he gives some credence to the medical community, but at the end of the day, like, the medical community is saying that we shouldn't be thinking about reopening until we're on average below 1,000 cases, right? We get one day where it dips down below 1,000 cases, and so the average is still at like 1,500. And Doug Ford's like, we're going to reopen. So, and it sucks that our leadership, like, just does not care about the working class whatsoever, that we aren't even an afterthought. We're just not part of the thinking. The only time that Doug Ford administration thinks about us is to ensure that we don't outright go on strike and riot. And then it sucks even harder because, like, we have a non-existent liberal, right? Who is this person? Why should anyone care about them? But then the person who you would think is closely allied to the workers is someone like Andrea Horath, right? And Andrea Horath, like, what's her ideas? Get sick days? Ooh, get sick days. Wow. What a revolutionary position. Get sick days. Holy cow. Wow. Jeez Louise. Like, this is how weak the working class has become, and this is how weak the workers are. And it's a damn shame. It's just a damn shame. Because capitalism is going to eat this whole society, and it's going to destroy everything. Right? It already is. You can already see it happening. And for dumb reasons. Just the dumbest reasons that you can possibly imagine. Like, I was just talking about British Columbia fracking, how we're literally blowing up the earth in order to get, like, squeeze as much oil out of it as we possibly can. And, like, one would think that kind of high-level destruction of our environment would be like, we've got to have oil for food production. We've got to ensure that we secure our national security and ensure that everybody can eat and doesn't freeze to death, right? But you know what's actually happening, right? That oil that we frack out of the ground goes and makes idiotic toys and little baubles and doodads, right? I sell a toy. I sell a toy called an LOL doll. If you don't know what this is, it's an environmental disaster, right? It's a little plastic ball, right? Wrapped up in 2 layers of plastic, that when you finally open it up, has 15 little packages inside, each wrapped in plastic. And then the toy itself is essentially like a McDonald's Happy Meal toy, that is itself plastic. And so all of this plastic that gets put together and manufactured and that we're fracking the earth to do, right? All of this effort goes in so that some little kid can go like, oh, I already have this one, and then throw it all in the bin. And it's just absolutely disgusting. And I just can't... And it's become so hard to bear it. It's become so hard to bear this nonsense and to see this nonsense unfold in front of us. And it's becoming so difficult, and I've been trying to distract myself, and I've been trying to find new ways to make this channel grow, and I've been experimenting and doing all kinds of stuff without... But the reality is that the way this channel grows is by me saying this stuff in long form. That's what it always was, and that's always how it has been. And sure, people drop off after that 5-minute mark, but you know what? A lot of you don't. A lot of you don't. And I think there's a lot of people who are interested in hearing this kind of stuff, and a lot of people who are interested in finding solidarity with other people and trying to find just a little bit of... I don't even know what to call it. I guess solidarity is the word. Just solidarity, just an understanding that there's anybody else out in the world who is absolutely trying and is absolutely sick of this. I'm absolutely sick of this. Are you kidding me? And the idea that we're going to go into an election, a federal election, and re-elect a guy who just does not give a crap about us at all. We're going to get 4 more years of this? We're going to get 4 more years of this nonsense? This is what we're doing for 4 more years? We're literally going to elect some guy who is just a pretty boy, who just wants to look like he cares about you, who's selling arms to Saudi Arabians so that they can commit a wide-scale genocide in Yemen, who is assaulting First Nations people, who is buying pipelines, who in a panic will pass a basic income and then steadily dismantle it so that the populace can't actually benefit from something that would work and be functional, right? Like, and the idea that this is what we're electing, that most of the society, that the most of the voters are like, yeah, more of that. Oh my God. And what's going to happen? And it's going to happen in front of our faces. And it's like this time next year, there's going to be tent cities in Toronto. That, like, because people are going to be abandoned, right? That this pandemic has wiped out huge sections of our economy, huge sections of the retail sector, right? And our economy was largely retail, like here in Toronto, and like the restaurant industry and all of this. And it's not going to come roaring back, right? When we finally open, the economy's not suddenly going to just like jump right back up and everybody's just going to go on a big spending spree and we're going to hire a bunch of people. Like, that's not going to happen. Especially because like these companies, they're going to get addicted to low labor hours. Like, they're going to try and say to me, oh, hey, can you do the job of 2 people now? Right? They're not going to suddenly just like rehire a bunch of people. That's not suddenly going to happen. Right? They're just going to expect us to do more work. Right? That's what's going to happen. And the result is going to be evictions. The result is going to be people living on the streets. The result is going to be more people begging and tent cities. And if we keep voting Conservative and if we keep voting Liberal, it's just going to keep happening. It's just going to keep happening. Because, like, Conservatives are just outright, we need to abandon people. Like, that's their stated position. That if you can't subserviate yourself to a billionaire class, or if you won't, or if you're unable to, then you deserve to be abandoned. That's the Conservative position. And the Liberal position is just like, it's not far off from that. The Liberal position is, yeah, we'll just give money to corporations, and like, that's what like, isn't it weird how the CERB was dismantled as fast as possible, but the wage subsidies, which have by and large been used by massive corporations to pay their shareholders and give big bonuses to their CEOs and to offshore wealth, while simultaneously laying off sections of their companies, that system stays completely intact and in place. That wage subsidy, no, that's completely fine, right? Got to get rid of that CERB as fast as possible. The wage subsidy, though. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. I'm just sick of, like, the apologetics. I'm sick of the just absolute nonsense that surrounds all this. Hey, how you doing? Another neighbor coming on through. So what can be done? Right? So what can be done? The only thing that I can think to do, right, is to join non-name brand organizations, right, that exist within the structure. So, for example, this Socialist Action Group that I'm a part of, right, they work with the NDP with the hope of influencing the NDP and the hope of maneuvering them and moving them further and further to the left. But they aren't owned by the NDP, right? They could jump over to the Green Party. They could jump over to even the Liberals if they wanted to. And this, to me, if you think electoral politics, but even outside of electoral politics, like if you think that organizing with a group, organizing with somebody is what you want to do, well, then you should do it outside of the party structure. That you should create a voting bloc, some kind of block of people who can organize and come in force and en masse, because that's what it comes down to. Like, if you can show up with 1,000 people someplace, that matters, right? Like, if you can get it organized so that you can show up with 20 people, 50 people, 100 people, right? That matters. Like, that's weight. You can get some stuff done if you have that kind of clout and that kind of organizational strength. But people are so isolated right now. I know I feel isolated. Like, I feel isolated, and I'm actively attempting to do it. I'm actively attempting to be part of this kind of thing. And we just have to get through the fear, and we have to get through the terror of all of this. And it's going to take our society forever to heal on this. Like, it's like, if we ever even attempt. Like, if you ask me, the capitalists are just going to try and move us along, right? They're just going to try to pretend like, okay, back to normal, ha 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 ha. Meanwhile, we've like been scarred, right? Like, this is a traumatic experience that we're all going through, and nobody seems to be actually addressing that, right? People are going to get evicted. People are, like, there's going to be rampant homelessness. There's going to be major issues that we are going to face as a society, and the capitalists are just going to abandon us and ignore it. They're just going to do to us as they've done to the homeless, which is completely silence us, like, just completely abandon us, completely ignore us, and pretend as though if you can't participate in this ever-shrinking economy that is benefiting 10 billionaires, that there's something wrong with you. And we shouldn't let them. It's total bullshit. They're gaslighting us. They're completely gaslighting us. This system, this capitalist structure needs to be dismantled. It's destroying us. It's designed to destroy us. And if we don't actively dismantle it, it will dismantle us. All right, guys, this is going to be the end of me. Oh, God, do I ever hope you guys are doing well out there. I hope you're doing well out there. I really do. I hope that you're looking at me and you're being like, oh, poor John's having a tough go of it. I hope that you're in that place where you're feeling good about yourself, but you're looking at me going, oh, John. I hope you're doing well. I hope you are. You're making good decisions, I'm sure of it. Don't let these guys gaslight you, because they're gonna gaslight you, right? If you've made it to the end of this video and you're not subscribed, just subscribe. This is what I do. I just cry into the camera. I cry into the camera. Be sure to hit that like button. That one right there. Doink, 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 doink. Be sure to hit that one. That really helps. Send it all around. Be sure to share it. Be sure to subscribe. What am I missing? Right? Oh, send a buck my way. That'd make me feel really good about myself. Sending a buck my way. Oh, man. I'm really looking forward. I'm really, really looking forward to the nicer weather. I'm from Manitoba originally. I'm from a small town, Porter's Prairie, Manitoba, and it's cold there. I left that province specifically to get away from this weather. Soon. It'll be soon. And then I'll be swimming, and then it'll be great. And I'll be on the beach, and there'll be sun, and there'll be beautiful people, and everything will be wonderful. I know it's true. I know it's true. Anyway, guys, I'm going to bounce. I hope you're all doing well. Go have a drink. Go have a smoke. High five a panda. Say hi to your neighbors. Love each other. More than anything. More than anything, just love each other, okay? I love you all. Good luck out there. We're going to need it.